Hello, Island community. My name is Richard. Welcome to my channel. Hope you're all doing well. Today I will do a response to the Progtag 2024 set up by Alex over at the Beer and Vinyl. Now I find myself missing, is it vinyl or beer and vinyl? I will leave a link below. And so he set up another kind of 20 questions similar to the more general vinyl tag for people to respond to. Also thanks to Pete over at Sounds from the West Coast and John Bellamy for nudging me on it. It's been a bit of a week here with the really cold weather, and found myself standing outside on a ladder for a little bit in 40 below with windshield weather, looking at some roof issues. So fun time, but needed a diversion. This is a good one. Anyways, I will launch into the first question. Favorite debut record. Well, I've shown this before, but I was thinking about this quite a bit, and I didn't come up with a more, I guess, different or creative answer showing a record I've shown before. This is album Duel 2, their first album, Follows Day. This is a re-release of that album, and probably my favorite tune from here is Lucifer's Guillaume. Highly recommended krautrock rock. The second question: show a prog artist or album that you got into in 2023. There couldn't have been a lot of answers to that question. I will dip into my CDs here, in part because this band did not release any vinyl on the first album. I don't know if they probably have in a very distant past. I've really only gotten familiar with them. The band is Rascal Reporters. The album is called The Strange Case of Steve. Or this side of it, this actually is a double CD. So on the other side is Ducks in a Row. I believe this was released by a Marx, I believe a Spanish label. You can find them on Bandcamp. This is progressive rock, jazz fusiony, experimental avant-garde, maybe a little bit of kind of Canterbury and rock and opposition flavors here. I end up now having, I think, gotten 3 CDs by Rascal Reporters in the past year, all relatively recent work, a couple of them from 2023. They have existed for a great many years, and I've just not been familiar with them, and I read others that have had the same experience. They just ran across them this year, and I think they actually started up in the 70s. There's been some different lineups over the years. I'd recommend check it out. Marx Records, I believe Cuneiform has been involved a little bit here too, or you can certainly find things on Bandcamp. Next question, Golden Jubilee, show a progressive rock album celebrating 50 years this year. And there's a lot to pick from there, including in my collection. Pick probably not the most obvious ones, perhaps for me, anyways. So I'm going to show Heritage Bridge by Mike Oldfield. Perhaps not his most loved album, but I've enjoyed it a lot over the years, and particularly in my teens when I listened to Mike Oldfield a great deal. Teens, early 20s, and still do. Now and then listen to Mike Oldfield, certainly. And let's see. Next question. Show a favorite live album. I tend to be maybe a little careful on live albums. A few bands I may be more open to, like, for example, the very excellent Can live albums that have been released in the last couple of years, with a new one coming here just in a month or two, with Can Live in Paris, now available for pre-order. Which I couldn't help myself but doing. But often I'm maybe a little hesitant about spending my money on too much for live albums. This, however, I'm very glad I got. This is by a live album by Moose Loose, perhaps more in a jazz fusion category probably, but this is Moose Loose live at the Kongsberg Jazzfestival, or Kongsberg Jazz Festival, if you want to turn it into English, in Norway in 1973. I believe this is a heavily cleaned up recording from back then. It's on the label Norske Arkivklassikere, Norwegian Archive Classics. Highly recommended double live album. Really surprised and really enjoyed this one. And regretting that I have yet to visit this jazz festival. The town is about maybe an hour and a half from where I grew up, and often a stop for a hot dog and gas on the way up into the mountains when I was a kid. When we were going to a cabin belonged to some friends of ours. So highly recommend. Next, show a non-UK prog band. Well, that's not too hard. I have a lot of non-UK prog bands, certainly. As many of you know, much from the Nordics, and but also some from South America, from Central Asia, and different places. But I'm going to show an American album, again a CD. This has only been released on the CD. The band is the Filibuster Saloon, and the title is Going Off Topic. This is a Canterbury instrumental Zappa styled album by, I believe, a student at Juilliard. I'm not sure if he still is or not, but Zachary Dedrick. Kind of a really warm, nice album. I really enjoyed it. Available on Bandcamp, I believe. I haven't seen it in distribution in the few stores that I check in on, but fun album. Next, show a proto-prog album prior to In the Court of the Crimson King. Well, I scratched my head a bit on this one as to what can I show, and I ended up a little bit all over the place. I thought Pete, the Red Sounds from the West Coast, did a really great answer with Stockhausen that he showed, and the story he told there. Recommend you see his video. I'm gonna go through a little quickly here, but one of kind of the things I want to do in my listening is to visit some of the classical composers that I've read about how they influenced progressive rock musicians. So I recently got this Bela Bartok album on the Non-Such label, a used find just before Christmas. I do need a really serious cleanup of this one, I think. So I don't have had really much of an enjoyable listening time with this yet. Otherwise, other paths I'm going down is Shostakovich. And one thing that particularly steered me down that path is the String Orchestra number 8, which, if you wanted a really heavy prog correlation, go to this Shamble Maths album on Apollon Records. Shamble Maths is a Norwegian duo. They pretty much did a progressive rock version of Shostakovich's 8th string quartet that I really like. Not an easy listen, but really rewarding one. So that's, otherwise I think I've showed this before. Edgar Varese, Stravinsky. This might have been one that I got from Michael P. Dawson as a kind of a bonus from a CD I got from him, bought from him a while back. Edvard Grieg, sometimes even also included as a big metal inspiration, and certainly there are a few different bands out there that's taken inspiration from him. My last video I mentioned the Norwegian retro prog rockers Ringman Möbius, who made a version of Anitra's Dance. And I got a Christmas present, Gustav Mahler. This Christmas present from my family, a box with his music, or a lot of his music. So some proto-proggers I am really wanting to dive into further. Next, show an album with an epic or a long track. Well, that's a lot to pick from in the prog rock world. I will show something that I want to get back to a little bit. It's real pick-me-uppers for me. So I'm going to show the Agusa Live in Rome album. Agusa, a Swedish kind of folk prog band that you probably seen on my channel before. Most of their music is released on the Swedish K2 or Kommun 2 label. And on this album, there's one that's called, it's kind of a merge in between two tunes, Landet Länge Sen and Sorgen 3. It's really a nice live performance. Again, I'm saying I don't necessarily buy a lot of live albums, but Agusa is one of those exceptions where I think you do want to buy their live albums. They do add a lot to the experience with the band. Next, show an album with a proggy song from a non-proggy artist. I struggled with this a bit. I'm gonna shake it up a little bit, so actually show some sheet music instead. So this is my Doors guitar book, and one of my earworms that I've spent a lot of time on over the years on my guitar to practicing is Riders on the Storm. I do have this on CD laying around, but kind of one of those CDs that I have only a cover for, as the actually hard cases and such got left back in Norway before my move to the US almost 3 decades ago. Next, an underrated gem, forgotten favorite, an artist or album that is underappreciated. I don't know about underappreciated for the ones that knows this, but this is the Swedish band Atlas. The album is Blå Vardag, or Blue Everyday. Not an extremely good translation, but maybe brings the point across. This is a re-release on the Replica label. Great symphonic prog. Some would say reminiscent of Genesis, probably back in its early days. Think of instrumental. This whole album is instrumental. Highly recommended. It's also available on the CD re-release as of recent couple of years or so. So highly recommend. See, next, go to the next page on my cheat sheet here. So, album featuring your favorite prog vocalist. I know I am not unique in this pick, but to me the pick is very clear, so I couldn't really do anything much different. Peter Hammill, acquired tastes, perhaps. To my ears, Peter Hammill singing, his vocals, it kind of brightens the day. It's something different. It's something unique, and kind of makes things slightly more the way it should be. This is, of course, Vandergraaf Generator's Pawn Hearts album. This is a re-release from the recent years. Of course, Peter Hammill has a lot of music that he has released also on solo projects and with other bands. Just one example more. Here's a live solo performance box that he issued a few years back. And I think in my last video I showed a recent CD that he re-released as well, or re-recorded and re-released. Next, is it prog? Show an album you describe as art rock. I must admit, art rock is not necessarily a term that I have strong associations with, so I struggled a little bit with that, anyways, this has been shown, I know, a few times over in different channels, but I also know, chatted with people that I may not be aware of the release, and also it's tough to follow along with necessarily all the Zappa releases. It could be a hobby and financial endeavor on its own, but this is the Funky Nothingness release from 2023, which I think is a great Zappa archival release to enhance some of the other studio albums. In particular, I really have a love for Chunga's Revenge, and you get some more Chunga flavors, certainly on Funky Nothingness. And next, the solo album from an artist from a prog band. Well, I think I may have goofed a little bit in my notes here, but I'm going to go for it anyways, because otherwise I'm not quite sure when I get a chance to reshoot. And it's not being too far out of whack. This is Captain Beefheart's and the Magic Band album. Well, so maybe not quite a solo album, but certainly very much Captain Beefheart. The album is Shiny Beast or Bat Chain Puller. I've mostly heard people talk about this as the Bat Chain Puller album. This is the recent Record Store Day release, or Black Friday release, whatever you call it. Had the album just digitally for some years, and glad to have it on vinyl. And of course, with Captain Beefheart's or Don Van Fleet's own art there on the cover. Jack of all trades, master of all show genre bending album. Well, so here I have to sneak in what probably is not going to be a surprise to everyone. Had to find some way to get there. And I'm going to show a CD. This was only released on CD, has never been re-released on vinyl. This is Terje Rypdal, a Norwegian composer and guitarist, probably most known for his Stratocaster, perhaps, but this is a classical music composition of his from released in 1990s, written in the late 80s. Andis Honus for violin and orchestra, and Ineo for choir and chamber orchestra, with a lovely picture of Western Norwegian mountains, which I believe is where he resides, close to this area for the most part. So had to find a way of sneaking him in. Next one, the 80s called Show an Album. Well, I will show Steve Hackett, Defector, from 82, I believe. This is the first solo Steve Hackett that I was exposed to, probably in my teens, as my dad is a big Steve Hackett fan as well. So I remember borrowing his CD a bit. So kind of the first kind of solo relationship I got with Steve Hackett, and really enjoy some of the tunes here. Next question, Not Dead Yet, Late in the Career album. Well, maybe this would be viewed as lazy, but a bit of a point to it. So this is Steve Hackett's latest studio album called The Surrender of Silence. And I know we're just, I think, a month or two, maybe a couple of months out from his next studio album, which is on pre-order with a big, beautiful whale painting on the cover. And right now the title escapes me. But anyways, I know I have a pre-order in for it. So Steve Hackett, who I am hoping I will get to go see in April, maybe, in Wisconsin. An artist you miss. And yeah, I was not entirely sure what to show here. Certainly many options. But I thought I'd select someone that recently passed away, and not necessarily names that I've kept at the top of my mind, if you will, but I very much enjoy the music over the years. Chris Kerr from Amandul, showing a different Amandul album this time, made in Germany. And I should say Amandul 2, so not the first iteration of Amandul. Not my favorite Amandul album by any means, but it's certainly be great if we had more krautrockers about for longer. I'm getting scared I'm going to knock over the camera here soon. Prog Goes Pop. And this is another one I struggle with. I may be not revisiting a lot of pop music that I listened to way back, so I'm going to show maybe kind of an album that's stirs some emotions in some people, at least. So this is Genesis and Duke. Some will say here that most of this is maybe more in the poppy category, perhaps with the exception of the last track on this album. So I thought maybe somewhat of a transitional album for Genesis. But I do enjoy this one. In part a fairly early album when I started getting and buying CDs in my teens for my collection. So this is a white vinyl edition that was released in the last couple of years. Show a prog album with cover art you love. Well, we're going to go to Brazil. This is Caravela Escalata. This is their third album, studio album, released on the Norwegian Charisma label. A really solid album. I kind of love the maritime style, kind of classical paintings. This is, certainly very dramatic with a volcano exploding. Maybe the light is not doing too much justice here with the plastic cover either. But if you like keyboard-based kind of symphonic prog, but with Portuguese or Brazilian Portuguese lyrics, you might want to check this out. I think a very fitting band for the Norwegian Charisma label. Next, an album you'd recommend to a non-prog fan. Well, certainly there are some difficult spots to start at, and maybe some less difficult spots to start at. A lot of the classical bands, kind of, or 70s bands, certainly would be good picks. I'm going to go to Wobbler. This is the box set with their first 3 albums, and I think an album to look at from this box set, which of course had to follow Murphy's Law and be at the very bottom, but is their Rights at Dawn album. I think just this album is, being retro prog for more recent years. It's influenced by different 1970s progressive rock bands, retro prog, and I just think it's kind of a nice cross-sectional album, if you will, to get a little bit of a flavor for Genesis, maybe a little bit of Gentle Giant influence, some Yes influences, kind of a good mix, with at the same time a little bit of modern feel. So that's my pick there. My favorite prog album of all times. Well, that's a difficult one. Kind of like, what day of the week is it? What side of the bed did I get up on? And the answer may change a little bit based on where I'm at mood-wise and mentally. But maybe one consistent album I revisit, whether it's the album itself, some live albums they have, some actually more modern concerts that you can find on YouTube. Some of them with very good audio. This is the Finnish band Tasavallan Presidentti. The album is Lambert Lion. And just finding really great joy in their music, and particularly 2-3 tracks, Dance and Lounge, for example, on Lambert Lion, somehow really sits well with me. And there are some really great different versions of it out there. This is the, I believe it's a 2019 re-release on Svart Records. And I know I have shown this before as well, but it's one of those, my mind keeps drifting there fairly often, so I thought it natural to show it again and not go too creative. But certainly there are lots of other things that at other times I may flag. So these are my responses to the Progtag. I hope you enjoyed seeing some of these albums, and maybe get some ideas for things to check into. Thanks again, Alex, for setting up the vinyl tag, and thanks for the motivation, Pete and John, and we'll see you all again in a later video. I hope to maybe do a video on some, perhaps not the most common Bandcamp finds at some point in the future. Take care, everybody.